he said it once, and then we heard him say it again, and then he said it a third time. Oh, they're slaves to the blues. And then he said something else about, no, but they're slaving away. Mm-hmm. But he kept saying that word, and it just was like.
It's just like folks sometimes use the phrase, I'm going to Jew them down. Trying to talk to them.
Or nigger rig it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no.
I bought this car from this guy. It was an old record car. Yeah. This guy was an old white guy. He said, you know, it ain't working like it ought to. He said, but I think we can nigger rig it and make it work. He did not miss a beat. I mean, he did not even think that that was something wrong with that term. And at his point of intellect, I didn't even think of trying to check him because he was beyond checking.
Right, but how would you have checked?
You probably grew up in here, that's all they use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
Well, they asked you, are you out of your cotton picking line?
But he said that like it was no everyday conversation.
Terminology. It probably was.
Yeah.
Or nigger work, I've heard that expression.
Which one?
Nigger work. I'm not doing any nigger work.
Oh, yeah.
But when you hear those kind of things, how do you respond, or do you just let it go? Just let it slide?
I respond physically and expressively. I don't necessarily.
It depends on the person that says it. I think if it's somebody who needs to know better, when I think all people need to know better, at that point, I was more concerned with his knowledge and ability to help me get my truck running than I was with correcting him. Okay, you know, you got to pick your battles. That was a battle I didn't want to fight that day. If I was in my job and I heard somebody say something like that, I would definitely correct that with the quickness.
So I have a question. So when you hear someone use the term "living the dream," is that a term that offends anyone?
Who's saying it?
There's Caucasians at work always use the term, you know, what are you doing? I'm living a dream.
Whose dream? Yeah, whose dream is it?
No, I mean, it just. Well, see, and that's kind of what I at some point it dawned on me, like, why are they using this phrase, living the dream? Mm-hmm. Because it was something that we as black people, you know, look at in a historical aspect as for a great person used those words at a time, you know, to help us as black people, but yet they just throw it out there, oh, just living a dream, you know, and just like it's so nonchalantly. And it just triggered something in me one day, so I don't know if it's offensive or not. It just made me think one day, so I stopped using the term myself. Because I used to use it as well.
Yeah, I've heard another African American use that. Like when I go to one of the schools to visit, and he'll say hi, and I say, hi, how are you? And he'll say, living the dream.
Is that a sarcasm? Or is it real meaning? You know, some people just say it like, just living the dream, like going with the flow, just
it is a sarcasm.
Doing what I do. Now, if it's used that way, but if they're like living the dream of Martin Luther King, things are, you know,
working towards something better.
Working toward a better, more progressive.
But you don't think that that's what those things
No,
yeah, I mean,
they're not.
I know, yeah, you can tell.
You know, so.
I think you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about what kind of responses that you can have to microaggressions, which will take us to becoming that change agent that I would hope that you would want to be, because you've talked a lot about having dialogue with people, diverse people, sitting around the table, and in order for making some changes. And so what does being a change agent actually mean to you? If focused on around diversity and inclusion, what kind of things would you be doing to become a change agent? To be taking those risks, to start having dialogues, and start being basically an advocate for inclusion as well as diversity. And I'm going to write a few of those up here on the board.
Well, first, I'll practice it myself. And I think one of the best things you can do is to model the behavior that you want others to follow or to do. So I think, this guy used to go around the country telling people how to live, how to have families and raise, and he didn't do that. He just went from one speaking engagement to another. He didn't have a family. He was talking about how people are supposed to live and this is the way you're supposed to do it, and he didn't live that way. And he was sincere and then he believed that, but this is the way it's supposed to be, then why aren't you doing that yourself? Why aren't you modeling this behavior? So I think that modeling the behavior and
Or
doing it,
practice what you
practice what you preach is the first thing.
And I think also to be willing to have those difficult conversations that nobody wants to have.
I think education is a lifetime commitment. You have to keep learning, and because some things do change. So, just like this group, it's been good to learn from the videos and just our conversations. So stay involved with people and get to know people that are different than you are.
I think one of the little things we can do, I won't let people tell me off-color jokes about different ethnic groups. If when they start saying, well, I got a joke I want to tell you, I'm going if it's about two Mexicans and a black walk into a room, I'm not trying to hear that, okay? I said, I don't do that. So now, do I like jokes? Do I like funny? I love funny. But I just don't do it with people that's going to be putting another group down. With my boys, I'll do it, but not with other people that are different from me. Because if you do it, you're giving people license to do it. It's okay. It was okay with Nick. I don't know what you other black people getting all upset about. He thought it was real funny.
Well, it's just like when they say we use the N-word. Well, you say it, how come we can't say it? I thought, well,
I don't use it.
I don't use it.
I try not to use it. I ain't gonna say I don't use it, but I try not to.
I don't like it.
And I would definitely not use it in mixed company.
That's a derogatory term perpetrated by white folks, and I do not want it used around me. But I think we should also not be bystanders. Even if it's not, something's being done against someone who's not necessarily African American, if it's wrong, we should stand up for them. Because if they do it to them, they're going to do it to you.
Chances are it's already been done to us. So.
Really? Yeah, look, I've been down this road before. It's supposed to, because we've been there, done that too many times.
And I think it goes beyond the difficult conversations to actually taking action. Yeah, it has to move to action because we can only talk so much before we need to start moving into action.
I think we need to get in touch with our own biases and stuff, though, because a lot of times we may be culturally ignorant too of some of the things we do and say to people that are offensive. If they did it and said them to us, we would find them offensive. But do we ever do some of those things to other people without thinking about it?
What else can you do as a change agent? And I think with the action, you also have to be able to take that risk, and I think that's what scares a lot of people, is the risk.
I think what Pat said was about education because, some of the stuff, the terminology has changed, but the understanding is still the same. Cultural competence, understanding diversity, inclusion, all those things are terms that have been around for a while. You mentioned that. The new one you just said.
Microaggression.
Microaggression. Now I've not heard that term before, but I've heard the term of being intentionally putting people down.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do it intentionally, but sometimes we do it unintentionally.
Correct.
But the
And so
result,
the term for that now is called microaggression.
microaggression, but the results, whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, can be the same.
Mhm.
So we need to be aware of what we're doing and when we're doing it and how we're doing it.
When people dismiss your comments in a work environment,
Mhm.
when they go around and ask everybody what their comments are on a certain thing, and they dismiss yours, or they question what you do, even though you know what you're telling them to do is correct, they'll go ask two other people.
Yeah, like
Wow.
Andrew,
I
you
don't
know,
believe what you told me,
what you
so.
said, you just totally dismiss what Marie just said
Mhm.
without even acknowledging it and just move on around the room. That makes me feel really bad when that happens to people. And I want to, as a principal, I really try not to do that to my people. I probably did it sometimes. But you know, everybody's valued in the group. And like you said, from the custodian to the superintendent, they all should get the same type of respect and acknowledgement.
Anything else that you could do to become a change agent? Either at work, in the community.
Get out there, get involved.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it, be about
And one thing too, don't let age hold you back, because there's so much that older people have to offer that sometimes the younger generations think you should be out to pasture. But I mean, all ages have different outlooks on things and have different views about things. So I think age should be a collective part of.
Well, that's
This
the
whole
whole
thing.
diversity piece,
Right.
right? Because you're including all different
Right.
ages, races, educational levels, socioeconomics, all those different things that were on the privilege page. You have a well-rounded group to be able to feed off of each other, and nobody has the one right answer, because you're always building and learning off of each other. So this is good. So for the last part, I just want to talk a little bit about some things that you could do to continue diversity and inclusion and the understanding of others. Somebody mentioned education, so are there ways that you would be able to do that? What, are you aware of anything that could, besides books, articles, what else could you use
attend
to?
workshops.
Like said workshop.
Yes, attend workshops. What else?
Read, there's journals and periodicals. I mean, you know, stuff that comes out about diversity. There was a book, it's free. It's done by the Southwest Regional Justice thing.
Southern Poverty?
Yeah, you do a book.
Lawson?
I can't think of the name of the book. Because they had one of their articles was called "The Pipeline from School to Prison,"
Mm-hmm.
and it was I can't remember everything I used to know. But there are magazines and books that come out. I mean, just the educational leadership has a lot of stuff about trends and educational things and values that we strive for in schools and stuff. But I just think that education is the key. And there are lots of workshops. There used to be Kansas culture workshops every year, big things where people came from all over. National speakers would come and do presentations. The Black educators used to do conferences every year that talked about diversity and leadership. The NAACP, I'm sure they do some stuff. The poverty, what's the preacher that does the
Reverend Scott?
chili supper? No, the chili supper as part of the Brown, the last day. interfaith